Hi, I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Wrestling, where I review wrestling-related things, all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. This week I'm reviewing a wrestling book, biography. I love wrestling biographies. It's one I've had for a few years, and it's one of my favorites. Jim Ross, Under the Black Hat, My Life in WWE and Beyond. Jim Ross, someone that, among wrestling fans, is argued as the best commentator of all time. Now, different people have their opinions. Some people still say it was Gordon Solie. Some people say it was Gorilla Monsoon. Now there's even people trying to say it's Michael Cole. Which, no offense, I have nothing against Michael Cole, but I don't even think he's in the conversation. But I'm one of the people that says the best commentator of all time, not play-by-play commentator, just simply commentator, is Jim Ross. This was his second book, and it picks up with his return to WWE after a bout with Bell's palsy. And some of the stories are canon, some of them are not. He kind of goes a little bit back and forth, but not so much that it makes it at all difficult to follow along. Like when he takes breaks to tell stories about tragic things, like he has a chapter dedicated to Owen Hart and the horrific events at Over the Edge. But for the most part, it gets back onto the story of him coming back to WWE after a bout with Bell's palsy, kind of stepping away from being a commentator, which he did not like, to go on to being a behind-the-scenes kind of guy as the executive vice president of talent relations, and talks about what it was like doing that. How he did enjoy it, he did like it, but it wasn't really where his heart is. His heart was performing. But goes through the ups and downs of that, of him basically just being a corporate guy, not really liking it, getting to go back to being a commentator. His health would start to get bad, they'd take him back. Basically, it seemed to just be a revolving door. His health would be bad, they'd take him off commentary. His health would get better, he'd be able to convince him, put me back on commentary, he'd go back to commentary. And sometimes they would just let him make special appearances. And sometimes they wouldn't. For example, when Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker had their second big match at WrestleMania 26, the one that ended Shawn Michaels' in-ring career, they really wanted JR to be there. Said he'd get to be there, but it didn't end up happening. But they did all get to hang out afterwards, and it was kind of a fun end of the era kind of thing. He even goes into talking about the original XFL back in the early 2000s. How even though it tanked, it wasn't successful at all. It was exciting for him because it gave him the chance to not only be a wrestling commentator, but his original dream of a football commentator. And that didn't really work out the way he was hoping, but that didn't matter because that version of the XFL didn't work out at all. From there, he talks about his career in WWE until, due to his health issues and his scheduling and everything, he was replaced as Executive Vice President of Talent Relations by John Laurinaitis. But from there, he's let go, but he's brought back on a part-time capacity as strictly a talent, just doing commentary, until that whole incident of Ric Flair getting drunk at that press conference and then blaming JR for it, and he ended up getting fired, which to date is the last time he worked for WWE. From there, it talks about him going off and starting his own podcast, which became very successful, especially because he started it at a time when the whole former wrestling personality starting podcast kind of thing, it wasn't really much of a thing yet. Now, it's all over the place. Conan has a podcast, Jim Cornette has a podcast, Bruce Pritchard has a podcast, former wrestler after former wrestler, and even some current wrestlers have podcasts. It's all over the place. When JR started it, he wasn't the first, but you can definitely say he wasn't one of the bandwagon guys. And not only that, but getting to do what he loved in some capacity, as he got hired as an English commentator for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he did that for a time. Obviously, New Japan Pro Wrestling is more famous in Japan, but with their US expansion, they needed some English-speaking commentators. Who better than JR? With Josh Barnett. But in between there comes the really sad part of the book. The saddest story of him losing his wife, Jan, in a horrible accident. Suffered severe injuries, was put on life support for a couple days, and then passed away. So from there, JR's obviously had a big change in life. What is he going to do? He's semi-retired, he's lost his wife, and it goes into him picking up the pieces. I will warn you on that. When you get to that part of the book, grab a couple tissues. Then, of course, from there it goes into this new upstart promotion that wants him to be involved in it. And he feels like he's still got plenty left in the tank. That new upstart promotion being AEW. This book came out within the first year of AEW. Jim Ross was there from the beginning of it being AEW. He wasn't there for All In, but he was there for the beginning of AEW. And it was a big announcement to them. They had the best commentator in the game joining AEW. And obviously since then, with AEW, in the beginning he was a full-time commentator. His health has started getting bad again, so he took on a smaller capacity. And recently he announced that he was going on hiatus. Whether or not he's going to come back to AEW, we don't know. Who knows, he may decide to finally end his career and go do a couple of guest appearances in WWE. We really don't know what the future holds for JR. We don't know if he's going to write another book. I kind of hope he does. I would love to hear his stories of being there for the beginning days of AEW. But again, who knows? I don't know if he's ever coming back to commentary. As a fan, I kind of hope he does, but as a person, I just kind of hope he doesn't overdo it for himself. He's gotten older. His health is catching up with him. Honestly, as a fan, I just like to appreciate what Jim Ross has done for wrestling and being the voice I hear when I think back to some of my favorite memories in wrestling. Jim Ross, in my opinion, best commentator in the world. Jim Ross with Jerry Lawler, best commentary team ever. Which is not to say there haven't been many great team-ups, but in my opinion, that was the best. Maybe it's just nostalgia talking, but it is what it is. So on that note, if you have not yet read the book Under the Black Hat by Jim Ross, it's very much still available. I recommend you find it, read it, and enjoy it. It is a great read, great story from the best commentator to ever exist. So there you have it. This is my wrestling review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and leave a comment. If you read Under the Black Hat, tell me what you thought of it. Tell me your favorite wrestling commentator of all time. Love you guys.